This is the Indy 11 Coaches Show podcast, brought to you by your Central Indiana Ford dealers.
Welcome back to the Indy 11 Coaches Show podcast. This is Sean McCauley. I am Grant Shoulders. Today we are going to be taking a look at the 2025 season and looking forward to 2026, while also going through some of the latest USL news. But first, Sean, how's the off-season been treating you?
Yeah, okay, yeah. We're tidied up pretty much. The recruitment in terms of the players that have left us, and told the players who are returning to come back fit and strong, and we're just currently now recruiting players to come and join us for 26.
When bringing players back between seasons, what's the thought process?
Well, it's obviously performance is a big thing, but some of them will have contracts that say they've signed for 2 years, maybe 3 years, so they're guaranteed to come back. Then the other players, like I said, it'll be down to performance, and like every football club in the world, it's down to another part of it will be down to budget as well, and we've got to manage what we think is appropriate in terms of players staying and players moving in order to meet the needs of what we're given to spend for everybody else.
Yeah. It's been a while since the last episode of this podcast, at the beginning of September. So a lot's changed. Obviously, we saw how the season finished up. When you think back to 2025 as a whole, top level, what's the main takeaways that you take into next year?
The main one would be the drive and the desire to get into the playoffs again, to continue our sort of cup success, because we've had a bit of success in the cup over the last couple of years. Last season we won 15 games. Problem with that is, they were cup games. 5 of them were the cup games, and so we need to make sure that our league form, especially at home, is strong and good, because we didn't have a good start to the year. In the first half of the year, I think we only won 1 home game. In the last half of the year, we won 6. So we've got to make sure that we have a strong start to the season, and obviously all season we've got to make sure that we're very strong at home, and it's going to be a tough year. But over the last 2 years, my win percentage here has been 44%, which I'm quite proud of in terms of being one of the strongest that the team's ever had. I need to get some more wins next year to make sure that I'm the most successful at the end of next year.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, when you look back at this year, you got some of the standouts that pop up in my head, maybe because of accolades, but Quinny, second team All League, and the Golden Playmaker. That speaks for itself. Same with Jack making himself the club's all-time USL Championship goal scorer with 10 this year. And like I said, those records and accolades speak for themselves, but those two come to mind along with Cam Lindley as 3 guys that we're bringing back that are vets and have been in Indy for a little bit. Just talk to me about what those 3 dudes mean for this team.
Good. Jack and Quinny both got the goal scoring record and the assists, which are great. But in terms of the team last year, like I said, we won a lot of games. We were a kick of the ball away from beating Philadelphia Union in the Open Cup at Philadelphia Union, who ended up being the Supporters' Shield winner, which over 34 games, they are the best team in MLS. So to take them that far was pretty strong for us. We missed out on getting to the semi-final of the Jägermeister Cup. We finished the Jägermeister Cup qualifying stage as the best qualifying team out of the whole 2 divisions of USL Championship and League One. And then in the last minute we conceded a goal and lost on penalties to that. So they're the 2 areas where I think we did okay in the Open Cup and the Jägermeister Cup. Just a little bit gutted, that still a little bit sore that we weren't able to put that one to bed in that game. And then we were 2 points off in terms of the league. And we drew 5 games last season, and 4 of the games that we tied, that we ended up tying, we were in a winning position, and the equalising goal in 3 of them, they came after the 80th minute. So I realised that we probably needed to get a bit younger and a bit more athletic when we want to close games out for the following year. But on full reflection of 25, the players gave absolutely everything. their attitude towards playing for Indy 11 and towards being here, you know, and a lot of the times, you know, some players don't play, but they still are right behind the team and right behind the club, and, you know, engaging with the supporters, which I think is huge. And I think that's also a plus for us. You know, we end the season and we go and speak to our supporters, and we know that we're both obsessed with getting success for this football club. So that's a real success for us. But yeah, for Quinny and for Jack, that's great, and I'm really pleased that Cam had a really strong sort of end to the season. You know, and he'll come back better for that, and we've just got to now put the pieces around those three and a couple of other experienced players, and I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, finished up talking about this year's team. Looking forward for new signings we've had by the time this is released, 4 announced. Just run me through before we get into any specific names, the planned thought process going into this offseason when looking for new signings and putting those pieces together with the team.
It's a long story, really. When I first arrived, we had players that I didn't think, you know, would get us to the position that we did in the Open Cup of semi-final of the Open Cup and finish from 4th in the league. So we had to make mid-season signings. With mid-season signings, you have to take contracts over that were given to them players by other clubs. And then once you do that, you improve for that season, which we did. We finished 4th and we got to the semi-final, and we gave a good account of ourselves. But then you've got to take them contracts that were given to these players by other clubs, and we've got to take that over, and that sort of hurt us a little bit in terms of being able to recruit for 2025. You know, we had a limited sort of situation where we could go out and get the players that we wanted to strengthen the squad. And we signed some really good squad players, but they didn't actually get over the line in the season and really dominate and get onto the field and help as much as what I would have liked. So that's basically how we inherited it in season 24. 25 was a little bit, you know, hamstrung by the contracts that we had to give to the mid-season signings. Now we're free and we're fresh of that, and now we've got to have a longer term plan for myself and for the club, and we've got to sign younger players, and we've got to get younger, hungrier players to come in. With that, the team will obviously go through transition of making a few mistakes, but I think the future of the club for next season and the season after that and the season after that should be easier as a base to recruit from than what I first inherited in 24.
Gotcha. I guess we'll start off with Eric Dick. I'd say it's fair to say that largest signing so far this season, name value-wise, popularity-wise, coming off of a championship with Pittsburgh where he was the MVP in the final, and in 2024 won Golden Glove and Keeper of the Year. So just run me through acquiring Eric Dick.
Eric is exactly what I'm talking about when I've just talked about, you know, the inheriting the squad. I left Minnesota United the same year Eric did, and I wanted to sign Eric. We just didn't have enough money for him. We had Yannick, who was on good money, and we had other players that didn't really play much for us in 24, who were taking away what I could have done if I'd have got Eric's money. That being said, we were able to get Hunter for free, and he had a fantastic 2 years. But in the back of my mind, I always knew that what could we do if we had Eric? Now, for me now, 2 years in, and Indy is my home as well as Eric's, he's coming home for reasons being he wants to play for Indy 11, and it just so happens that I'm the coach. Like I said, 2 years ago, I would have loved to have made that happen for him, because I've got a really strong relationship with him. That didn't happen, but I'm really pleased and excited that he's got to come back home and play in front of his family, his friends, and the supporters, because the way he values the team, the area, the club, its fans is second to none. So, yeah, that's sort of gives an impression of what we struggled with at the start when I first arrived. We couldn't get the players that we wanted, but now we can, and the reason for the off-season decisions that we had to make is because we wanted a player like Eric in, so we had to move things around in other areas.
Yeah, I think the local aspect of that is huge. We got him, Cam Lindley, and Logan all from this area, so I know the fans really appreciate having some homegrown people with them. So yeah. Next is we both have Charlie Sharp and Dylan Singh. I know they were most likely had their individual processes of getting to the club, but we received a ton of excitement about them being together again after they both played in the same attack at Western Michigan in college. So yeah. Just start by this side with that.
We recruited them individually. We knew they played together, but we recruited them individually. We recruited them to replace two very, very, very good players in the USL. So they've got big shoes to fill, because they're filling the shoes of Romario and Elvis. But with them, we knew that they had strengths similar, and they had some growth in them to where we can get them, maybe to push them to the next level and get them to play a little bit better and a little bit stronger and meet the level of the championship, which then, if they do that and do really well, who knows where their career might go. But yeah, we recruited them individually. Charlie's a really strong player, obviously got drafted by Toronto, had a really good season when he went into MLS Next Pro. He made a couple of first team appearances in the MLS. And we're really looking forward to working with him. I think he'll be good, and we've got to fit a style of play that suits him. And then obviously Dylan, similar. And when we were recruiting him, you go back and you try and go back. You start with the previous 3 games, and then you go back and you look at all the other actions that they do, and then you sort of watching games. Then we found that they'd worked together at Western Michigan. Then we watched them play together, and we're just really fortunate that they've got a relationship. They've played together. They work well off each other. And as much as the supporters are excited, we're excited. I'm not to say that that's going to be the partnership, because we've got Chizza and we've got other players that maybe come into that reckoning. Bruno played centre forward last year and did really well. So I want to get a really strong attack, all hungry to play. And it's then just about managing what the best relationship is at the time to play against the opponent.
Gotcha. Yeah, you just mentioned Bruno there. I think coming into last year when you guys signed him, when we signed him, I think he had won Defender of the Year in USL League One, and that brings me to my next guy, who Mikel Rashid. We signed from League One South, a 6'4" defender who also scored second most goals on his team this year. So the reason I brought up Bruno is because it felt like Bruno won Defender of the Year, but ended up being one of our premier attackers by the end of the year, and showed some promise all over the field in every spot. So just talk to me about Mikel Rashid.
Mikel, good. I can't see him being anything other than a defender. We knew Bruno when we signed him that he could play multiple positions, and he did do for his previous team. He played majority of as a wing back, sometimes a forward on either side. So, and he got a lot of goals from set plays. With Mikel, he'll get goals from set plays, and that's why he is probably their second highest scorer. Very strong, very dominant in the air. Had a setback in his career. I think got drafted and then went to Huntsville, which is Nashville's feeder team, and then he got an injury which put him out. So then he's had to drop into another league, a different league, and now he's building his way back up. He had a fantastic season last year. We recognised and knew of him and wanted to get him here, and probably real easy to get the deal done because he was desperate to come.
Awesome. Moving on to something I think is important definitely to the club, but also I think to the fans and people in this Indianapolis area. Our U20 Academy team. They just went to the finals for the second year in a row, and we're going for their 3rd straight tournament win after winning this tournament last year and then one in the spring. Ryan Hunsucker won the Golden Ball and Golden Glove, which stands out because he's a guy who's been here since he was 11 or 12 years old. With guys like Ryan and Mav departing from the first team, going to college at Notre Dame and IU, respectively. Are there any names on the U20 team that people should look out for, whether it be to train with the first team or anything more?
I think another guy, like a guy called Jake Alba, who's trained with a couple of times, done really well. He's going to go off to college as well. Really gutted for the players that didn't get to get the championship. But in saying that, when they win that championship, I'm not overly saying that this is the be all and end all, because it is what it is. It's a youth development process, and what we need to do, and I've said this all along, and I've got quite a passion for youth development. I was in it for 7 years. We need to develop talent that can play in the first team. Now, if we'd have won that tournament, great. If we don't win it, then great still, because we still need the job done, which is getting players through to the first team. We're able to convince Logan to take that track, and we've got to make sure that we're really, mindful of what his progression is next season. If he's not playing, we need to get him on loan somewhere, because he needs to play. He needs to safeguard his future. But he chose to come to us, and I think it was the right decision. Hence the reason why Ryan probably won the Golden Glove and Golden Player of the tournament. He's been with us, and he's trained with Andy Swift, Reece, Charles Cook, and Hunter every day. And that will raise your standards. And it's the same with Maverick. That these players that come in and train with us every day often get opportunities to go somewhere else. If they go to college and come back to us, great, a little bit like Carson did. If they go to college and have a great college experience and a college career and move on to somewhere else that could be better into the MLS draft, there will always be a home for them here, because we're not going to turn away good players, and especially players that want to play for us. So I'm really pleased, gutted that they didn't win it, because I would have loved to have seen that recognition for the club, and recognition to the coaching staff for all their hard work. But yeah, really excited to maybe get a group of them players in, the younger ones, not so much the older ones, to come in and train with us, a little bit like what Ryan did for a couple of years, and then maybe in a couple of years' time he goes to that tournament again, or gets into college, or gets into the first team.
And I should have mentioned it when I asked the question in the first place, but Quinny was down there helping the team and helped them train up here. Any thoughts of your captain involvement? Yeah,
no, Quinny's going to transition into doing some coaching work for us. I've said that. We need to, it's my responsibility to help the players throughout their journey, their playing journey, their transition into coaching, their career, and I'm more than happy to do that. And we were really pleased that Quinny re-signed. We've given him some responsibilities to work in and around with the staff, and going and getting the experience in terms of being with the team is really good for him. Understanding, what that takes. But I think he's got a good knowledge of the game, Quinny. So I think, he just now needs to pick up the experience, and he needs to make sure that he doesn't get the coaching bug too early, too soon, because if you go into it too early unprepared, you'll fail. Gotcha.
Moving on to more USL focused news since the last episode of this podcast. The final happened, as we mentioned earlier. Eric Dick was the MVP of that final, but Pittsburgh wins in pens after 0-0. Two teams we showed some success over. Tulsa played them twice, beat them twice, traded games with Pittsburgh. What's your thoughts on the final, these two teams?
Really pleased that Pittsburgh got over the line, and I would have been pleased for Tulsa as well, because you can't not respect the winner of the overall tournament. I think we've got to pay respect to the Supporters' Shield, or the Players' Shield, whatever it's called, in terms of Louisville, because their run of only losing a couple of games all season, or whatever it was, is tremendous. It just shows you that anybody can win the USL championship. And the way they won it is credit to them. That's what they've been set up to do. The players deserve a lot of credit. They played 4 games, scored 1 goal, and had 3 0-0 ties. If you do that in the league, you're going to get a lot of upset supporters, sponsors, everybody that's associated with the club, because nobody wants to see a 0-0, and nobody wants to see your team draw 3 and win 1-1-1-0. So they've built something that was good for them at that time. Whether they continue to do that, I don't know. But yeah, credit to them, and it just shows you that the goal is to get in the playoffs. Once you're in the playoffs, then you've got to make a run. And to be fair to Pittsburgh, I don't know what the record exactly is, but I think they might have been in the playoffs 8 or 9 years on the run. So in order to have that experience, you've got a better chance of winning if you're in the playoffs consistently, and that's what we need to make sure we do.
Gotcha. For more USL news, both Brooklyn and Jacksonville have been announced as being added this 2026 season. Just thoughts on expansion in the USL Championship and what it means for not only the league but U.S. soccer in general, honestly.
Expansion is great if it doesn't replace somebody that's left. And unfortunately, we're in that position where we're losing a team and we're gaining a team. So unless you build a sustainable model where the teams that are in the league can sustain and be in the league, then it's real expansion, because it's not expansion if you're just adding one and losing one. In relation to that, great if these two teams come in and raise the standard of the league, raise the bar. Lexington have definitely done that. Rhode Island have done that. They've come into the league, built stadiums, signed a lot of players, signed for big money. And they're raising the bar. Squad sizes have gone from probably 5 years ago at being 15 to 18 players to now being 25. So there is a movement towards improving soccer in general, and the USL is at the forefront of trying to do that. I just hope that when expansion comes, it's not at the detriment of somebody losing a club, supporters losing a club, people who work in the club losing a job. And I just hope everybody's able to sort of grow the game and not just replace one for one.
And how do you feel about, like you just said, it's not expansion if teams are just subbing in and out. But with Pro Rel being announced last year, coming in the future, do you see the relationship between those two like colliding, expansion and Pro Rel? When you add a team in and they could fall that very next season, is that something that you think could butt heads with each other? Or?
Could do. You've got to put safeguarding in place, and you've got to realise that relegation is something that happens across the world, and relegation doesn't mean all of a sudden the whole business is gone. I believe in the US, supporters come because of what experience they get at the ground, and they want a positive experience. So that positive experience can also be there if you do your job right and you have your community engagement and you get all the supporters on side and you communicate with everybody. I believe that you can have a successful team the season after you get relegated. Same supporters will come and you might be winning more games, so then it's even more exciting and you might even gather more supporters. So as long as there's safeguarding in place where clubs can't down tools, a little bit similar to the North Carolina situation where they've stopped playing and said they're going to come back in a couple of years. Well, that couple of years has obviously saved them quite a bit of money. So when they join the league in a couple of years' time, they've not spent what we've spent over the last 2 or 3 years.
Gotcha. Turning to some cup conversation, you mentioned it earlier. After your 2 years here, it's been a ton of cup consistency and success. Obviously, first year, the semifinal, and then last year, with, as you mentioned, with Philadelphia, very close loss. We know our group now. By the time this is announced, this episode comes out, it'll be announced that who our group is in the USL Cup, and we have a game scheduled at League One member Fort Wayne FC. Love to hear your thoughts on the in-state battle and mindset going into cup competitions this year at all.
The Jägermeister Cup will be very similar to what it was last year. You're going to have to win, try and win 4 games. We won 3 and got the extra point on a penalty win, which was huge for us. So we're going to have to compete in every game that we play. But obviously the local game against Fort Wayne will be great. It'll allow our supporters to travel up there and, experience I think they'll be in the new stadium and, experience a local rivalry game, which is in state, not one that's out of state. So yeah, looking forward to that and looking forward to all the games in that, because we need to win a trophy, and last year we had a chance to get through to the semi-final, which would give us another chance, but we didn't get over that line. The club needs to win a trophy, and Jägermeister Cup is pretty close to what you can get as sort of winning it as early as possible. If you get through the group stage, you're then into the knockout phase and win 3 games, and you're probably going to win a trophy. The
Open Cup format has changed for 2026 a little bit. A bit due to the World Cup, which we'll get to in a sec. I think they're having a break. I don't know exactly how long between games due to the World Cup. I believe the Open Cup games start earlier. There are less total teams, which may mean that there's one less round that you have to play through. but teams just have to qualify now for the Open Cup. Just your thoughts on the format change?
Yeah, I'm not too sure how big the format change is. I think we've still got to win 7 games to win it. I think, we're coming in at round 1, I think, whereas maybe the year before we're coming in a later round. You're right that, there's only so many teams from each division that are going into it. The MLS are obviously prioritising the other competitions that they're involved in. But it's huge for us as a club. Don't care what anybody else says in USL Championship. I really don't. I think the Open Cup is a trophy that we need to go as long as we can, and we need to obviously get through the earlier rounds where we do play before the MLS teams come in. But once the MLS teams come in for proper, then we need to give them a game. I'm not sure what the format is this next year, whether USL Championship teams can host, because they couldn't host the previous years, but I'd love to see us take on an MLS team at home and give our supporters something to really rub the noses in of the opposition to witness what we can achieve at home against an MLS team.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I know the supporters would be all over that. An MLS team visiting Indy would be awesome. For the World Cup, just talking about super broad spectrum. This is pretty much the last thing I've got for you. So the World Cup draw for the group came out this week. Any thoughts on the United States draw?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. They've got a couple of games where they've got a little bit of needle in it from previous fixtures that they've played against each other. I think if the US put out their strongest team and they get a good momentum going into it, I can see them getting through the group stage, and then it's up to them then to face whoever they face. And like as we've seen with Pittsburgh, if you can get through and get a bit of momentum and you can win a few games, and maybe they could be on penalties or extra time or maybe a referee's decision, who knows who could win it. Obviously the favourite's going to come from the usual European and South American teams, but it might be time. The World Cup's not really had a big shock. The Euros have had the shock before with Greece and Denmark, but I think the World Cup's not really had that much of a shock. Usually the same teams, are in the final four, so who knows, it could be a year where the US go a little bit further and hopefully on home soil they can really get it done, because that'll grow the game immensely in the country.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question, is just the broad scheme of us hosting it. I think the biggest impact, in my opinion, it would have on the country is the youth development and the youth interest. I think kids, any age really, but specifically kids from ages 9 to 16. I can remember at that age when the World Cup was happening, and you just don't see that level of passion for the game over here. And when you see it displayed in front of you on TV for the world to see, it's something special. So that was what I was going to ask you, is about the influence the hosting has.
Yeah, I mean it has a huge influence, in the local markets where these games are going to be, because you'll get, such a diverse community all coming together, all supporting one thing, and their passion that these countries display about their football team is huge. The difference between this and the previous one, it grows the game. I think in the modern day era, young kids now can access as much as they want on YouTube, whereas before it wasn't on television. We didn't have access to the YouTube. We didn't have social media. So, that growing the game is a difficult one to answer, because you knew for definite that in '94 it was because it was held here and everything sort of blew up. Now we're going to have to sustain all the people that support it, generate their, passion again, and keep maintaining all these younger players that are watching it to watch the local teams, which is like ourselves, to come down and watch us, and hopefully that World Cup, carnival is what it generally is, sparks that interest for people to then go and support the local team. And that's what I think, hoping that happens, because we need the young ones to come through and support us.
Awesome. Well, that'll do it for episode 6 and season 2 of the Indy 11 Coaches Show podcast. As always, make sure to check out shop.indy11.com, and we will see you all next season.